It's time for Who Watch, Time and Relative Blackness in Space.
Have the box.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana and Robin coming to you live from the Time Vortex. Connie is off gallivanting in New York, but she'll be back next week.
Today we're discussing episode 8 of Doctor Who season 10, The Lie of the Land. In this episode, the Doctor is working with the monks, Bill fights against fake news, and Nardole is of use for once. It only took 8 episodes.
I kind of feel like Nardole was of use last week.
Was he?
Yeah, I mean, he died, so...
No, this is useful. Well, he didn't, though. Like, we find out he didn't. He just got sick.
Well, yeah. But, you know, he did his part. Okay, so, I don't know where to start. It feels like it's been so long because I did the last week's episode with Angelique.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this episode definitely... I liked it better than the last one.
Yes.
I thought that, like, the first one was really confusing. The second one, it felt like, I don't know. It was fine. It just, like, kind of... Some of it I didn't understand, like, what was the point, kind of. Like, obviously there was a point, but it just felt really, like meandering, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but...
I mean, I said this last week, too. I think that's kind of the trouble that you get in with, like, second of a trilogy thing.
Yeah.
It always feels just like a bridge.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it was. Because it was just kind of like, what's happening? It's slower than, like, you know what I mean? Like, we know we're not going to resolve anything, so, like, why is it here? Like, there's certain things.
Yeah. I'm a much bigger fan of two-parters because of that. Two-parters are... You have to be very concise and, like, set it up and then knock it down.
Right.
And when you add in that third part, unless there's a good reason for it, it usually fails. And
I think the only other 3-parter we've had was, like, a surprise 3-parter. Like, it ended up, really, the first part just ended up having a cliffhanger at the end, and then it was a 2-parter. Okay. Which was, it was actually the one that this episode reminded us of like... So it was that Sound of Drums, like, trilogy where, like, the first one they went to the end of the universe, and that was, so it was, like, a separate story, but end, it was like, oh shit, it's the Master, and then there was a 2-parter. But I think sometimes it gets counted as a 3-parter. So yeah, but I liked this one. I thought it was, like, really, I mean, it was very clearly clear what they were responding to, in this story, like, I don't know. This one was very clearly about fascism and dictators, and oppression, whereas... And fake news. Very explicitly fake news. Which, you know, we're going to see that a lot in a lot of television shows in the next, like, 10 years, 5 years. But, you know, this is, like, when we first start getting it. There was some other... Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I was like, there was some other show that also did this in the place that I won't mention because Robin will yell at me. So yeah, so I thought it was cool. So you know, we start off with, like, the monks. We see, like, we hear the Doctor, like, telling the history of the monks along with, like, the history of the human race, and they're like, tell everyone that they've basically been around since the beginning of time, like, shepherding humanity through, like, its civilization and whatever. So it's interesting because they use, like, Bill and the Doctor very much, like, in order to make this happen. So they use the Doctor's voice to kind of reinforce these things, and then they also they kind of, like, take credit for some shit the Doctor did, which I felt like was hella shady. They were like, defeated the Daleks and the Cybermen. I was like, and the Weeping Angels. I was like, yo, you a lie. It's like
did you though?
Plagiarism. And then also using, like, Bill's, consent, which I put in quotes because it really wasn't consent. Like,
I know I have so many questions about that. Because if the first dude didn't consent, like if his consent wasn't accepted, then how was Bill's consent accepted when she very, like, honestly asked them, she was like, you can have it, just give him his sight back. And then immediately after said, you got your sight, give me back my planet. Like, she wasn't consenting to them taking over at all.
She was just like, give the doctor the sight. And they were like, oh, because it's love of the doctor. And I was like, no, but that's not love for you. And, like, you can't demand somebody love you when you're gonna, especially if you're about to, like, take over their shit.
Especially when their love for that person is also tied into their faith that that person is going to defeat you.
Right. So like, I think that's less.
I will give myself up to be your hostage as long as you let Bayana go, when I know that Bayana isn't just going to just go off and live her happy life. She's going to come back and get me. Like, it's true. You know what I mean? Like, sure, if one of us, you gotta let one of us go. Let Bayana go. She's smarter, cooler in a crisis. She could probably keep her head. I'll be here, and then turn and look at you like, but bitch, you better come back. You know what I mean? Like, that's basically what happened. Right. And how is that consent?
It's not. It's totally not. Like, it's under pressure and duress. Like, it's not what that is. But also, I feel like you mentioned in the first of this, like, trilogy that the monks reminded you of the Silence, and I didn't see it until this episode, and really a very, like, specific scene where they're, like, trying to break into the fortress or whatever, and then the monks start to attack the guards, and it was like their fingers were super long and they were pointing them at people, and there was like electricity coming out of their hands, which then turned solid, so I wasn't really sure what that was, but there were like certain scenes where I was like, that was literally in The Impossible Astronaut. Like, I remember that scene. Right. It was really familiar.
We are heavily recycling storylines and monster abilities at this point.
And I think some of it is like references, and then it makes it like nice, and other stuff like the monks and the Silence being very similar was kind of like, didn't we do this already? Whereas like other ones felt like kind of throwbacks, like, hey, remember this? Like, for example, in the very beginning when they show the doctor like telling this story, you see like a bunch of people watching like these television sets through a storefront, and the store is Magpie Electricals, which is like a throwback to season 2 and an episode that like I don't particularly care for, but I liked the throwback. You know what I mean? Even still, it's like, oh, we sat through that episode, and I remember Magpie and The Wire, and it was a bad episode, but you know, cool.
It was a bad season.
It was,
but yeah, I agree. Like, I think the other thing is, you know, this episode was really, to me, really heavy on Sound of the Drums, and I was like, if at the end of this they all have to say the doctor at the same time, like, I'm gonna throw my computer. And
I actually think that they did a really interesting
and they kind of did that.
They did, but in a good way. You know what I mean? Like, it was all Bill's thoughts, and then it was like, say her mom. Like, it just made it more. And I want to save some of that for Bill Phil's, but like, it made it less like religious and also sweeter and like not as heavy-handed.
Right, like her memories of her mother untouched and unsullied by the monks. I also love the idea that Bill has made her mom into her imaginary friend. Yeah. Because I feel like that is kind of a really interesting way, and like Nardole kind of ruined it when he's like, I had an imaginary friend once, he left me for someone else, and I was like, shut up, this is not that.
This is her mother,
also,
fam.
Just shut up. Right. But like, it reminds me of when people like, you know, go to graves and talk to their loved ones and stuff like that. It's like she's carrying that memory around, and it's not her mom really, because she was really young when her mom died, so she doesn't probably remember that much. But I really wish Connie was here, because I loved that sentiment, and I loved how that comes back to like save the day. Yeah.
Although now I'm not sure that I want an episode where like Bill goes back in time to meet her mom.
Yeah, I don't think you can have that now because it's...
Yeah, I think at this point, like, her mom is this character, right? And it's more like the idea of her mom as this character and, like, kind of is Bill's backbone. Like, that's who she goes to when she's, like, in trouble. And then going back and meeting her might... And maybe that's the point. That could be the point. Like, her going back could potentially, like, ruin that. But, yeah, I don't know. But I really like that thread throughout the story.
1 to 2 more seasons with Bill so we can get that, guys, writers, producers. So I guess I want to start with, like, Bill. So we open with this family watching Doctor give the history of the monks and humanity, which is like, is that something that they have to watch daily? Is that something that, like, you know what I mean? Like, how they were all, it was like the family with the little boy and they were sitting there watching it, and it's like, is that compulsory? I mean, like, some part of it is, right? Because then immediately the police state, like, burst in the door and arrest the mom for crimes against, like, thoughts, basically. Like, she can remember and believe that the monks have only been there for 6 months, and that is what's going to get her sent to a work camp for 10, 20 years.
Right.
So then it's like they're also monitoring thoughts. And so I was a little bit confused, too, because when Bill goes back and starts talking to her mom, I thought, like, oh, the people coming to bang down the door were going to be, like, the state, and it was Nardole. But, like, how does that work? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
and I mean, I was confused about that, too. Like, do they leave her alone because they know that's, like, her thoughts are the ones that are...
The link.
But then also, like, there was that moment where they were breaking into the spot to save the doctor, and the monk looks directly at Bill, and I'm like, you don't recognize her?
But don't you know her?
Don't you?
Right.
That... I was like, that doesn't seem realistic. So that was really confusing to me, because I was like, can you just not... Is she invisible? Like, do you just not know... How do you not know who she is? Like, she's the whole reason that y'all even able to be doing this right now. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's always these, like, little things that, like, I've always, you can't poke at them too much because then it, like, everything crumbles. But, like, those, like, how did Nardole get River's diary? Like, that is something that we can, like, you know, maybe they went back in time or they did, you know, like, there are ways to justify that. But then something like the monk looking directly in Bill's eyes, like, you can't justify. That's just a bad piece of, like, oh, this will look really awesome.
Right.
But...
And
like,
it's really tropey, too, right? Like, they walk in, and then they... Yeah, it's really tropey and doesn't fit there because, like, they should know her.
Especially if all of the soldiers were on the doctor's side. So they were going to let them through anyway. So there could have just been, like, that really scary, like, looking at her thing and then a noise happens or whatever, and then he just lets them through. But, like, that was what was supposed to be. It was like, oh, they're about to get caught because they're going to do a sweep or whatever. And then the monk comes and, like, distracts them. But when you find out that, like, oh, the guy was working for the doctor all along, it's like you don't need that monk to come. Like, it could have just been a tense moment where he's like, we're going to double check your stuff or whatever, and then he lets him go.
Right.
You know?
So yeah, so part of, like, the thing with, like, the references to, like, the sound of drums, I feel like most of my thoughts are Bill Phil, so I just want to, like, get Missy out of the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Because I was going to say I wanted to go into when they reach the doctor, but that is Bill Phil.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, okay, let's just get through all other stuff, and then this will mostly be a Bill episode. As it should be. But, so Missy, we finally get to, like, see inside of the vault, and it's interesting because she's like, and maybe this is just when, like, the doctor, well, no, because then at the very end, the doctor and Missy are, like, sitting in those chairs, but at once she's, like, enclosed in another type of prison, where, and maybe it's just because Bill was there, and so he was like, nah, I can't come to her. I love that Bill, like, again, questions, and she's like, why you got a woman just locked up in this vault? And then when she says, oh, I thought it was a monster, the doctor's like, well, about that. Which is like, it's
You're
nice.
not wrong.
Yeah. She actually is. But it's interesting to see, like, she's learning How to Be Good, and that's like her. So it's kind of like she's in that vault because she's going through withdrawals, and she just needs to like.
Time out. How to Be Good, title of a really good book by Nick Hornby. Continue.
Okay.
Sorry. Just wanted to name drop that if you guys are interested, you can read that book.
Cool. So yeah, so just like it was interesting to see, like, mainly she's there for herself and not for like, I mean, you know, and obviously for others, because if she did slip up, that would mean hell people would die. But I also like that her trying to learn that doesn't take away from how ridiculous she is.
Right.
And I also appreciated that she said Nardole looks like an egg, because
I thought you would like that.
Yeah.
And also he does.
He does.
Just facts.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I do like that she comments on the fact that, like, they haven't come to visit her. Mm-hmm. And so I can see the doctor opening the vault and going and sitting with Missy in those chairs and letting her, you know, out. I think that he probably put the force field around her because Bill was coming into the vault. Mm-hmm. But I'm interested to know, like, what it looks like when Nardole comes to visit her. Is it just what we saw when she knocked on the door, you know, and he was down there checking the lock? Is that what she consider a visit, you know?
Right.
Or does he go into the vault and sit with her? And also, in her quest to, like, learn how to be good, how is she doing that in basically solitary confinement? Because she is crazy, and that tends to make people crazier. Mm-hmm. So, and if you're not good with people and dealing with others without killing them, being by yourself just seems like a bad plan. So, yeah, I want to see more of that explainer. Is it just the doctor coming to teach her, or what, you know? Mm-hmm.
And then I also like you kind of see the differences between, I mean, you know, clearly there are a lot of differences, but in her quest to be good, like, her idea of what it means to be good, and it's like, you know, an age-old kind of argument, right? And it's like, you know, you kill one to save thousands, versus the doctor who's like, nah, everybody lives. And in saying, no, everybody lives, then there are casualties, right? But then, like, in that way, he doesn't, but that way he doesn't take, right, but in that way, he doesn't take responsibility for those casualties, because, you know what I mean? It's easier for him to forget it if he goes, and no, we're just trying to save everyone, as opposed to killing the one person who could prevent all of those things. You know what I mean?
And he doesn't kill them himself. Like, circumstances happen that, you know, they get hit by the monks, whatever, and the monks kill them. But could that have been prevented if they weren't going on this, like, suicide mission to save everyone without killing Bill, you know? Mm-hmm. So, it's an interesting argument. But yeah, I like that they bring it up.
Yeah. And then, like, Missy even tells the doctor, your version of good is vain, arrogant, and sentimental. Which are, like, 3 words that really describe the doctor really well.
It's not false, right?
It's really not false. Like, she said that, and I was like, ooh, let me write that down, because that's literally who this dude is. Like, yeah. And then I also, before we move to, I don't know, do you have any other things about Missy before I...
Yeah, I just was shocked. Okay, so this is kind of goes into the overarching episode too. Because it was so heavily reminiscent of Sound of the Drums. I really thought that this is when when the old master John Sims would come back. Uh-huh. And so I was kind of waiting for it, and then it didn't happen, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I'm really, like, interested to see how that plays out. And then this isn't really about Missy, but before we get into the Bill Phillips, like, when the doctor and Nardole are setting Bill up and he regenerates, like, that was, like, how do you fake that? Like, right. Because I have questions there. So those are, like, the 2, like, last things that I wanted to just throw out there. For our listeners who can, like, tweet at us on Twitter if you have ideas, like, how do you fake regeneration without wasting regeneration energy. And if the master didn't come back, or if there weren't two masters in this one, how are they gonna do that?
Right. I actually have two thoughts now. One that I forgot to say and one that just popped in my head as you were talking. One is that at the end, Missy does start to say that she's feeling remorse, which is one of the two moments when I thought of Harry Potter, because that's how my brain works. So I was like, oh, she's just stitching those Horcruxes back together. Okay, all right. So she's starting to feel remorse, which I think is really important. And the other thing is, I'm wondering, like, because again, we're still trying to figure out what capacity her previous, John Sims master is going to show up. And part of me was like, at first I was like, maybe he's going to, like, come back and then turn her bad again. And then I was like, maybe we'll get to see him regenerate into Missy. That could be cool.
That would be cool. I also, but then that, I don't know if that would be that cool, because that's going to then take us back to Time of the Doctor or whatever. Well, it was like Sound of the Drums, and the second part of Sound of the Drums. I can't remember the actual name of it. But,
where he's all hungry and stuff? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, when he dies, basically. And then the Doctor turns into that old little man.
No. That's two different ones. That's two different ones. End of Time was when he was, like, hungry.
Yeah, isn't it Sound of the Drums and then End of Time?
No. Sound of Drums is with Martha, and that's when she goes around the world. End of Time is at the very end, and the Doctor's running around with Wilfred Mott. So that's at the very end of the Doctor. Yeah. That's right before he regenerates. So he came back twice. Okay. Or he came,
I'm not before the Doctor regenerates, before the Master regenerates, because his wife shoots him.
Yeah, and he doesn't really regenerate, though. Because he dies. No, he refuses to regenerate, and then they bring him back for the End of Time, which is like the very last Tenet episodes.
You know what? Because I haven't rewatched those, and I'm not going to, and you can't.
I mean, they're not. The End of Time is not great. I don't particularly care for John Sims' Master, but I think it's mainly because I don't care for those episodes. I don't think it has so much to do with him as it does those episodes, so I'm not going to begrudge you that. Before we move on to Bill Phil's last Harry Potter thought I had, the Doctor tells Bill that she's safest by his side. And I was like, I mean, that sounds like Hogwarts. It's the safest place for you, but there's, like, monsters in the there's 300 dogs and basilisks, and, like, you could lose all your bones in your arm. You can't go in the Forbidden Forest because people could kill you there, but it's the safest place in the world. And I'm like, the Doctor, like, how many companions have you lost?
Right. Didn't your last
and they were safest? Like, your last companion died, and, like, you don't remember that, but still. The last 3 of them died. No, Donna didn't die. No. But she lost all of her memory.
I don't think of Amy and Rory as dying, because they went back in time and then lived a life. I mean, they
were imprisoned for like 30 years or something ridiculous. They were still imprisoned by the angels.
I thought they just
for all that time.
I didn't know that they were imprisoned. I thought they were just.
Well, like, they were still at like the Winter Key. Remember when they went back in time and old Rory was in that place with the angels? Because they're feeding off of his time energy, and they kept him there. So then when Amy went back with him, they just stayed there. At least that's how I understood it.
Okay. Well, then, yeah. That's not great.
Nah, it's not.
Yeah, so I think the other thing about the Doctor as Hogwarts is also, like, yeah, you're definitely, like, not safer, because you're literally in the eye of the storm. Like, wherever he goes, destruction and crap follows. But also, like, you're not safe anywhere. Like, it's just
right.
It's verifiably false. Like, this false sense of safety and this false sense of, like,
and I'd argue that's worse, right? Like, thinking that he's gonna be able to protect you every time and having, like,
right.
And then if that doesn't happen. Right.
Who gets really reckless, right? Because she starts to kind of rely too much on that, like, oh, well, we got it. We're always going to figure it out. We always going to get out of this. Like, no.
And I mean, it was a similar thing with Bill this episode, right? And, like, I guess we can go into Bill Phil's now, but like her, when she confronts the doctor and he's like, nah, I'm with the monks now. And like you could see her, and first off, Pearl, the acting was just,
that was
I was like,
consideration
girl,
for the Bastards.
Girl.
That was the clip they gonna send out.
They have to, because I was sitting here like, oh my God. Like, I feel it. But like when she realizes, right, when she's like, oh shit, I'm like actually on my own. And I've been holding on, that's the only thing I've been holding on to this whole time is the hope and like the faith that the doctor is going to come and he's going to fix it and it's going to be cool. And I mean, who knows how much she really learned that at this point, because it turned out to be to be false, you know what I mean? But that's always the thing that gets these companions in danger every time, is that they are just like, yeah, the doctor is going to fix it. Don't know how, but it's going to happen. Right. I'm safe regardless. Which is like not
Don't ask
true.
Too many questions. The other thing about Bill, though, that I thought was really interesting that I didn't expect, but was good to see, is that when she was on her own, she was kind of, like, she was out there looking around, like, she saw the woman got up by the state, and then she's, like, practicing her constant vigilance, you know what I mean, and she wasn't doing a lot, because she didn't really know what to do, but she was looking for Nardole and looking for the doctor in her own, like, kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, like, I don't know what I thought. Like, I didn't think that she would just kind of fall in line, but she has kind of given the impression that she has a hard time not believing. And I'm thinking mainly of, like, the first episode and then the second part of this episode of, or I'm sorry, not the first episode. The episode where she moves into the house, and then the last episode of wanting to believe what's real and what's not. Like, this is real life. Like, when I'm off on the TARDIS with you, like, that's something different.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, like, kind of how she reacted when he was like, you moved into this creepy-ass house. And she's like, nope, nothing to see here. This is just an old-ass, creepy, like, house. But this is what I can afford because I'm a millennial. And then when they were finding out that they were in, like, that practice round for the monks, and she was like, no, this is real. It feels real. This is real. This has to be it. So it's kind of shocked that she didn't let herself just, like, fall into that again when the monks came. Like, nope, the monks have always been here. Like, something seems a little bit off, but I'm going to ignore it because this is, feels comfortable or whatever. So I was pleasantly surprised. But I liked that. What is this, episode 8 now? So in 8 episodes, however many months that she's been traveling with the doctor, she's already kind of breaking that down and looking for the truth.
Can we also talk about these, the Martha shout-outs in this episode?
The jacket.
The hair.
The hair at the end.
Both times, actually.
The little spiky.
The first time, too, because it's very much like... I said the first time, too, because that's a lot like Martha when she's, like, traveling around the world. Right. In that episode, like, her hair was slicked down and, like, and yeah, and then at the end,
but
it's, like, a little poof.
Like, the, like, going around and looking for the doctor and, like, being on your own while he's out there, like, you can see him on TV, you know what I mean? But
exactly.
you're, like, off sneaking around, like... The whole thing was very reminiscent of Martha.
Now all we have to do is get them in the same place.
Right?
Like,
oh my God.
You're teasing us, and I don't appreciate it.
Like, oh man.
We want Martha Jones.
Been canceled, rest in peace, but, like, Freema got some time off, let's do this thing.
5-minute cameo, that's it.
Walk past each other on the street, come on, like... something. Yeah, I really loved Bill this episode. So let's just talk about her confronting the doctor and shooting him.
Yeah.
Because if that wasn't the, like, realist, I mean, she has that great speech, which we said was, like, her, for your consideration speech. And the doctor comes back with his whole thing, And she was just like, nah, man. No, I did not do all of this for you to turn around and, like, side with the monks. Like, that's not how this works. It's also interesting that he gets his sight back. The monks give him his sight back, and that he kind of uses that against her in a weird way. Like, he didn't tell her that he was blind to begin with, and then when she asked for him to get his sight back, he says, like, you know, you started all of this because you didn't want me to be blind.
Which is, like, not really true, right? Like, because if you had told her I mean, like, it is her fault on the one hand because she did do that to save his eyes. Like, but on the other hand, you didn't.
He needed his eyes
so he could get out of the thing so he didn't die and, like, blow up. So that's the other thing, is, like, to save your entire life. And then the fact that, like, if you had told her way before that you were blind, then she would have come with you. Or, like, something, there would be a way to work around that, right? Versus, like, telling her in the moment when you're about to blow up that you can't see.
And I also don't like it because it's like there are blind people who are, like, fully functioning humans. Like, it's a very ableist kind of thing.
It is. And I was wondering, like, how they were going to handle that when they made him blind in the first place. I was like, so you're just going to... They use it more as, like, a hindrance and, like, a flaw versus, like, there are plenty of other things they could do with it.
To the extent of the fact that he's only been blind for a small amount of time and you do need, like, an adjustment period.
Right.
Fine, right? But if you had been straight up with her from the beginning and you guys had, like, figured it out and you had started to learn how to be blind, I don't think she would have done that. Mm-hmm. Right? But in her mind, you've been blind for, like, a week. And then you said... I'm blind, and that's why I'm about to die. Not, I can't get out of this room.
Right.
Or, I don't know, I can't. You know what I mean? Like, I need my eyes so I can get out of this room. And so that's where her brain went, right? So, it was interesting because when he did that, I was annoyed. And then when she came back at him and then shot him, I was like, well, there you go. Like, right,
because I love that she shot him too, right? Because, like, in her mind, she's like, well, if you're working for the monks, then, like, you can't be alive now. It's just not a thing that can happen. So, sorry.
It's dangerous to not be on my side. If you're working against me, you got to go.
Yeah.
I also love that she shot him too because she doesn't know what that does, right? Like,
right, because I was gonna say, does she even know about regeneration? I don't think she does. Right, no, because he mentioned it and she asked him, like, and then he put a pin in it. He was like, oh, let's go move into your house. So.
Right. So, what else, Bill Phil's wise?
I am curious. This is just a random question. So, you know how the doctor took Bill's mom, like, I went back to Bill's mom and took pictures of her and stuff. You think he took her on, like, an adventure or two?
I don't think so.
No.
But that's a nice thought.
It would be fun. But it's fine if that didn't happen, but...
Maybe he, like, swooned her. Maybe he courted her mom so that they could be, like, dating and then he could take the pictures and, like, you know. So he, like, hooked up with her mom, which would be kind of weird.
It would be. Awesome. And then he's her father or something. No, don't do that. Soap opera.
But yeah, I think the other thing about Bill this episode was she seemed much more sure of herself and much more, like, ready to go. She didn't have, like, as many questions after they talked to Missy. She was like, well, if I gotta die, I gotta die, right? Mm-hmm. Like, she just seemed like, why are we doing all of this stuff when, like, the answer's right in front of us? Like, which I'm not. I'm also like, if y'all try to kill her again.
Do they keep threatening to kill her? And I'm annoyed, and I would rather I need them to stop. Like, last episode, they were like, oh no, is this consent gonna work? And, like, the one before that, she died, and then we found out it wasn't real, and the one before that, she died, like, 3 times. Mm-hmm. Up in space. I'm just like, What are you doing? Stop it.
Right. Stop playing with her. Protect Belle. We must protect Belle at all costs. But yeah, I think that even though I was like, she better not die, I liked that she wasn't scared of it. And like, it took 6 months in this hellhole, which I'm like, so sick of these frameworks, man. I'm so sick of them. So sick of them. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. I'm sick of these matrices. No more. Done it. No more. But she was just like, yeah, come on, quick and easy. And then when it wasn't going to be that, she
pulled a river.
Right beside him. She pulled a river.
Yeah, she definitely pulled a river. He got knocked out, and she chained him up and was like, okay, I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
Like, that was a river.
Which was also part of my, she said, like, I don't want this, this isn't how I wanted our last conversation to go, and then he said, I don't want this to be our last conversation, and then I said, what?
It was just so emotional. Oh my god.
So emotional.
It was so emotional.
Yeah, big fan of that. Can we also say that when Nardole comes in to her house, she picks up the stool, like that's gonna do something, and then first she picks up the stool and she's like standing to fight, and then she's like, well, you know what, I'm gonna hide with the stool, and if I have to use it, but I'm not just gonna like lunge.
Right.
And then her questions for Nardole are like, what sound does the TARDIS doors make? Chick.
But that was the third Harry Potter moment. I forgot about that. You know, like the questions, like only ones you would know is protection. It's like, you know, post Voldemort world. You gotta know your enemies, know your friends.
What was the thing in my office when we last saw each other?
I appreciate the levity that Doctor Who puts into their shows. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah,
that shit's
always
funny.
some good jokes. Like,
yeah,
it's not a Doctor Who episode. Even the terrifying ones, there are some good jokes.
Mm-hmm.
I would just prefer that there be less terrifying ones. I don't know. I feel like the season's been really heavy. I just want them to go on a nice little jaunt, get into some light trouble. You know, amidst the Cybermen is what I'm saying.
That's hilarious. I think the Cybermen are coming back though.
Oh man.
I think like the old school ones though.
Yeah.
So all these like dudes in silver jumpsuits and like masks basically is what's gonna show up. It's gonna be like, all right, this is weird, but it's fine because again, Cybermen, like you said, are not really scary. Okay, so we should move on to quotes, but I just have also a question. Like, who is the hairstylist on the Doctor Who team? Because, like, they've been doing Bill's... I mean, unless it's just her, because I did read for Luke Cage that Simone Missick, who plays Misty Knight, like, had to do her own hair for shooting or whatever. But I'm like, her hair is always different, and it's, like... healthy and like well taken care. You know, they're not trying to like do hella shit with her hair, but like
I was a little upset this episode because they straightened it.
But I really wasn't mad.
That nice chunky braid without.
Yeah, that's true. But I wasn't mad about that actually because I was like, you know, you show the versatility. That's why I was asking because I was like, all this time it's it's been out, it's been up in a puff, it's been like different styles, and this one they're like, okay, we're gonna straighten it, but they're not like. Now it's long flowing locks that, you know what I mean? They bunned it up and put it, like, you know what I mean? I appreciate the versatility that they're showing versus, like, Martha had 2 hairstyles. And so, yeah. Maybe 3. I think she wore her hair down once.
Though I will say that, I mean, when you're traveling with the doctor, it's difficult.
You gotta, you gotta put it up. She had to protect them edges.
Why you spending all this time on hair day? Like, we got monks to defeat. Put that thing in a puff and let's go.
It's true.
Yeah, I whoever is doing this The styling in general, I think, has been great because I clocked the doctor when they go to save him, his suit that he's wearing inside of the monk's temple, or inside of the boat. It was different, but it was nice. I liked the cut. I liked what was going on there, and so I think the whole makeup and wardrobe team,
they're winning.
Top notch work. They're winning as a whole. All right, so quotes from the TARDIS.
However bad a situation is, if people think that's how it's always been, they put up with it.
It's just a woman. I thought you had a monster in here or something.
Why have you got a woman locked in a vault? Because even I think that's weird, and I've been attacked by a puddle.
I once built a gun out of leaves. Do you think I couldn't get through a door if I wanted to?
Missy is my favorite. Because I would like to know the context of when she created this gun out of leaves. Right. And, like...
Right. But also... I was like, yeah, you probably did, Missy. I'm not mad at it.
No, I totally believe it.
I didn't get the correct, wording, but when she was basically, telling them about the link, and they're like, oh, you kill her, I just pushed her. She was a little girl. I just pushed her in a volcano. I was
like, Missy, you can't be pushing girls in volcanoes.
You can't just be pushing little girls in volcanoes.
What's wrong with you?
She's like, just a wee push. Just a...
nudge.
Real quickly. Just a wee girl.
Hot mess. This is the doctor saying, I can even throw in some other stuff. There are things I could change just by thinking. Racism. People who talk in cinemas. I would like to say that he followed, a good thing with racism, because black people talk in cinemas. I talk in cinemas. I try not to sometimes, but it's really difficult. We were trying really hard not to talk during The Cursed Child. That's just a thing that we do. And I feel like his persecution of us as a people is disrespectful.
Right. Also, it kind of bothered me because of what's going on in our own political landscape right now. Bill Maher, cough, cough. But, you can't just think away racism. It's structural.
Right. But maybe the way, but I was thinking, right, is if he ends racism, that means he's going back to the time when they decided and they put all those categories together, and he's like, you know what, that didn't happen, and then boom, no racism. You got to go to the source, because there was a source of it. Now it's just entrenched.
All those fixed points in time. Okay, that's cool. We can do that.
I mean, are they fixed? I mean, I do think that within this world, it would have to, because I don't think they could write a real, universe without racism. So, he said it, and I was like, that's cool, and I'm glad that they're, mentioning it, because no other doctors have ever mentioned racism, and some old Doctor Who episodes are racist. Oh my god, the Pyramids of Mars.
Oh man, classic Who. And, yeah.
It's laughably racist, though, because I remember watching 4 once, and I was really sitting here like, did y'all just, oh my god, and I just was like, dying laughing because it was too much.
It was too much. Fake News Central, and that's when they walked into the pyramid.
Bill's mom, you just went viral. He's trying so hard to be cool.
I know. It's not working, but yeah. So Bill says humans have learned that they can overthrow dictators and stuff if they band together. And then he goes and just completely destroys this poor girl walking by minding her own business and says, humanity's doomed to never learn from its mistakes. To which I say, valid.
Yeah. It's true. Why do you put up with us then? In amongst 7 billion, some are like you. That's why I put up with the rest of them. That was the sweetest thing that you could have said to Bill, and I want them to never part.
And then he said, go write that 3,000-word essay.
Yeah.
For real.
Which is so about he said it's 6 months overdue. I was like, you're so rude. That's hella rude, actually. Right. That's disrespectful. She just saved the world. Right, so let her live.
Right. Can she get a week off or something? So thank you guys so much for listening to Tarbis, Who Watch. You can check us out at blackgirlscrate.org. You can read Connie's writing at the New York Daily News. That's Constance Gibbs. She's a big deal. She got the check mark behind her name on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at WeBlackandNerds. Bayana is Yana_Hallows, and I'm Robin with a Y _Ravenclaw. And Connie is Constar24 avec checkmark. and use the hashtag Tarbus to share your thoughts with us, and we can talk about this episode and other episodes and where you think this season is, how you think the season is going to wrap up on the social medias.
Yeah, join our Slack as well. We have a channel dedicated to Doctor Who, so if you want to, do that with like a community of folks, you can do that. That's always fun. If you want to do that, there's also other things you can talk about. Rate and review us on iTunes as well. That's super helpful.
Yes. And if you are a Potterhead, you can check out our other podcast, Wizard Team, hashtag Wizard Team.
It's true.
Where we read Harry Potter chapter by chapter. We're just wrapping up Goblet of Fire right now, so you could come in at the most happiest of times.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But, if you're coming in now, you have, 100 episodes to catch up, so maybe, can stall that a little bit.
Don't stop at the end of Goblet of Fire where
everything is terrible. Yeah. So join us next week when we discuss episode 9, Empress of Mars. I think I only watched, the preview. I didn't read, the description. So I think they're in, the 1800s on Mars, which is interesting. And I'm curious because there is, I mentioned just a second ago, there is a run for the 4th Doctor where they deal with, it's called the Pyramids of Mars. For some reason, I was like, is this going to kind of play off that? I'm not sure. And also there's the Waters of Mars. There are lots of things that happen on Mars. So, I'm excited. We'll see where it goes. And
Robin thought the Doctor was a Martian for a very long time, so what are you gonna do?
Yep.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
The black girls have the box.